This is New Amsterdam Vape, and in this video, I'll review the Adonis by Arctic Dolphin. The Adonis features a very stylish stabilized wood that is randomly colored on every device. The stabilized wood is very smooth and adds an extra level of decor to a vaping device. The Adonis is 27mm in width, 46mm in length, and 90mm in height. The Adonis has a wattage range of 5 watts to 80 watts, a temperature range of 90 degrees Celsius to 340 degrees Celsius, or 200 degrees Fahrenheit to 650 degrees Fahrenheit. The wattage resistance range is 0.1 ohms to 2.5 ohms, with a temperature control resistance range of 0.06 ohms to 1 ohm. The temperature control mode is compatible with nickel, titanium, stainless steel, and platinum wires. Looking at the Adonis up close, the biggest draw to this device is the stabilized wood facade. Each version is unique and you cannot select the colors of the stabilized wood, though the chassis comes in silver and black. The stabilized wood is smooth, but mine came with some scratch marks from the cutting process, which damages the vanity of the device. The 510 pin is adjustable, but needs to be adjusted with a flathead screwdriver. I prefer a spring-loaded pin that automatically adjusts, but it was nice to adjust it precisely to get all of my tanks and drippers to fit completely flush with the device, with no gap. The bottom of the device has a battery compartment which is covered with a screw that has a handle that pops out. My biggest issue with the battery area is the lack of labeling. There's no indication which end is positive and negative, even when looking inside the battery compartment. I had to do some extensive research online to find out which way the battery goes in since it was not listed in the manual. I found out the positive end goes in first, with the negative end facing the cover. Also, there's no vent holes on the battery compartment, which in my mind is a very huge safety hazard. Press the fire button 5 times to turn on the device. The plus and minus buttons increase and decrease the wattage or temperature depending on what mode you're using. Press the fire button 3 times to toggle between wattage and temperature control modes. You need to press the fire button 3 times to toggle between each wire, which is a bit time consuming if you accidentally change the mode while trying to turn the device off. Holding down the plus and minus buttons will take you to the menu, which is made up of very hard to read symbols. Use the plus and minus buttons to navigate the menu with the fire button selecting the symbols. The first symbol of a sun allows you to adjust the brightness of the screen. The symbol of the lock allows you to toggle the lock mode on the device, which will lock the device entirely without firing, but you can still enter the menu by hitting both the plus and minus buttons. The next symbol allows you to flip the orientation of the screen depending on your preference. The next unreadable symbol allows you to get a puff limit on the device, so it'll cut off after a certain amount of times it's fired. I don't see a need for this feature and recommend keeping it set to 0. You can also set the amount of time the coil can be fired, which ranges from 3 seconds to 20 seconds. 10 seconds is the norm for most all devices, so I prefer to keep it that way. The F and C symbol allows you to choose between Fahrenheit and Celsius for temperature control modes. The small H symbol allows you to choose which wire you want to use for temperature control, though you can switch the wires for temperature control with the fire button anyway. The next 2 settings are saved resistance and atomizer settings that you can keep when you add a new atomizer. The M symbol controls the burst mode for temperature control, which controls how fast the atomizer heats up in temperature control mode. The last symbol turns off the device completely. When attaching a new atomizer, there's a prompt for new or old load. Use the plus button for a new load or the minus button for a previous load that's saved. I placed on my 25mm diameter Eagle tank, which fits well on the Adonis without hanging over the edge. You'll be able to use any 22 or 25mm atomizer in your collection. I first tested the Adonis in wattage mode with the Troll version 2 RDA with a 0.3 ohm dual coil, between 35 to 60 watts. I found this combination worked best on the Adonis at 50 watts. I found this strange since I have been using the exact same setup right before on other devices at 40 watts, but I had to crank it up to 50 on the Adonis to get the same effect. One very noticeable thing when chain vaping is how hot the device gets. I could feel the buttons and board getting very warm, and the battery was also very warm when I removed it to check on it. I then tested the temperature control using a 0.2 ohm stainless steel coil on the Eagle tank. I used this in temperature control at 400 degrees Fahrenheit and then in wattage mode at 30 to 35 watts. The temperature control worked well, though there was low cloud production, but I prefer the stainless steel coils in wattage mode. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of temperature control and I prefer wattage modes, and that goes the same for the Adonis. Moving on to the pros and cons. The Arctic Dolphin Adonis is a very stylish stabilized wood device with many features. The stabilized wood facade is the biggest draw to the Adonis, while the overall performance and plethora of features in the menu is pretty okay. Moving on to the cons. My biggest con is the lack of vent holes for the battery. This feels really unsafe to me personally. The battery compartment is a large copper tube that is completely sealed off when the cap is in place, making it a sort of pipe bomb in case of battery failure or if the battery has a bad rap. Also, the lack of labeling for the battery leads is really disappointing. I don't know how that detail could get glossed over. The device gets very, very warm at higher wattages. The board and battery feel very warm and there's no way for the heat to disperse from the Adonis. This is more of a vanity mod, so I would use it at lower wattages and try not to push it too hard. The price is actually my biggest con. I found the Adonis can be as expensive as $300, which is really expensive for a lackluster device with only a stabilized wood fixture that you can't even select the color of. If you like collecting pretty mods for your shelf, then maybe this is for you. But for the average vapor, I wouldn't recommend this at all. Overall, I'm really not impressed with the Arctic Dolphin Adonis. The stabilized wood fixture is really pretty, and honestly, I do like it. But for the price and the way this device handles, it's no way worth the money. This is New Amsterdam Vape, and if you found this video helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe.